Hello and welcome. My name is Zaffar Iqbal and you're watching the Mojo Story. India has registered a surge in COVID cases. The country's tally as of now on Monday stands at 578. Now, ahead of the New Year's Eve, night curfews are back to counter the Omicron threat. Many states have already announced night curfews. In Maharashtra, 50% capacity is allowed for gyms, hotels, and cinema halls to control possible crowding. The Delhi Disaster Management Authority has banned all events and gatherings to celebrate the New Year. But as you can see from those pictures, there are political rallies still taking place. Some of the states are going to polls, particularly UP and Punjab. To talk more about this, we're joined by an eminent panel. We're joined by Dr. Ishwar Gilada, who's an infectious disease expert. We're joined by Tavleen Singh. She's a senior journalist. We're joined by Sandip Ghose, political analyst, and Professor Chauhan, a scientist. Let me start with you, Dr. Gilada. How serious is the threat of Omicron as of now? We're seeing a surge in the cases across the country.
See, there is a principle in physics called Seebeck's principle, and I
Yeah,
will convert that into Seebeck principle. You look at
right.
delta wave when it
Yeah,
was in January 2021 first detected.
yeah,
1% of the total cases in India were delta, and
right.
that went on increasing by 7%, 22%, 44%, 77%, and by June it was already 99% of all infections in India were delta.
Right.
Not only that, from one country where we had that origin from Amaravati district in Maharashtra, it went to almost more than 100 countries. And currently, before
Yeah,
Omicron had come, 99%
yeah,
of all infections were from Delta. So if
yeah,
Delta can do that, it is a simple logic that why Omicron will not do that. And we have seen
right.
that happening in UK, Russia, Germany, USA, South Africa, and people talk about mostly developed countries, Europe and America. But you pick up any country from Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Burundi,
Yeah,
Rwanda, Tanzania, Nigeria, there is a resurge of every week 400%, 500%, and there the testing capacity is very poor. Genome sequencing doesn't happen that much. So I think if you just take a pen and paper calculation, what will
yeah,
happen? The WHO says it is doubling every 2 days or every 3 days. If we take doubling every 2 days, then by 15th of January we'll have 6 lakh cases per day. And if it's doubling every 3 days, by 26th January, we'll have 6 lakh cases per day. So
yeah,
that is the magnanimity of Omicron. So currently, right from just 2 cases on 2nd of December, we have gone to say, almost 600. Number
yeah,
two, the genome sequencing capacity of India is not very high. In Maharashtra itself, we can do per week only 3,700 genome sequencing. So I don't
right.
want to say that we should do more genome sequencing, but there is a S gene absence is a proxy marker of Omicron. So if you are doing RT-PCR in lakhs and millions, then you just pick up which are the S gene absent. They are Omicron. And when
Yeah,
Omicron replaces Delta, there is no need of doing anything. Whatever cases come, that is all Omicron. So I think there's simple logic which we are not applying, and we are waiting for that disaster to happen. Now, lastly, in Delta, we used to see a lot of deaths and a lot of
yeah,
hospitalization. People
yeah,
say with Omicron they are less. So if you say that there are 300 cases, out of which five were dying with Delta, and out
yeah,
of 300, one will die of Omicron. For a doctor like me, whether the person is dying of one out of 300 or five out of 300, for me, I have to provide the same support and care to the person because I don't want to see that one happening to somebody. And for the patients, they don't have to wait to be one of the 300, one of the 500. So I think we should not go only by that trajectory that it is a mild virus, it is not going to kill many people, but 80% less hospitalization and four times, five times more trajectory, it amounts to same. Thank you.
Uh, Professor Chauhan, something about the nature of this variant. What we know, it's more transmissibility, but symptoms are rather mild.
Yeah, first of all, Ishwar has actually very quickly explained why it is inevitable wherever there is Omicron gone, and Omicron will go everywhere, there's an inevitability about it that it will spread. The
Yeah.
data that we have, and I'll be very brief, from South Africa, now from US, UK, Germany, everywhere, the transmissibility is minimally is twice, but up to 6 times. So let's say it's
Yeah.
about 4 times more. And remember, Delta itself was highly transmissible. Delta became Delta in the sense it overtook all previous viruses simply because it was very highly transmissible. We are talking about even more highly transmissible virus, so that should settle that. What you do with it, and is the so-called information. Now, very briefly, the Delta has about 52, 53 mutations in the whole genome, which is the size of 30,000.
Right.
This is selected over Delta, which has much less, maybe about 20. This has surprised everybody. But I had said it long back. The viruses actually eventually go back in the background. They never disappear. You'll never get rid of them. They will be there. Is when they start multiplying, when they start spreading very fast, and in the process start killing lesser number of the host. But what Ishwar
Yeah.
said, if we just snapshot stop here and look at Omicron, Omicron will kill. It will be silly to think there'll be no deaths will occur because of Omicron. Number of deaths or hospitalization will be much less. And here it is important to insert that those who get vaccinated or have neutralizing antibodies sufficiently, with or without booster, would, whether it is Delta or Omicron, will be protected from hospitalization. Therefore, you will not be stressing your hospitalization system. But when the Omicron comes, it will spread extremely fast. And if the number of people infected is very large and number of people go to hospital, comparative Delta is much less, still the sheer number will be very large. And that's the fear. That's the fear
Yeah.
right now in US, UK, Germany, France, wherever you see. France has more than 100,000 per day. England has more than 20,000 per day. So I don't think, see, as I said, no need to panic, but you need to prepare. This seems inevitable that this will happen. Lastly, Omicron, and Ishwar also said it, and I don't want to repeat it. Your ability to say I have Omicron or not is that you have to sequence my genome. So you could do a random sequencing of positive cases and extrapolate from that. And should you do that, the number in India, I dare say, must be larger than what it is, as it turned out to be in USA initially. USA now, 80%, 70% of all viruses in USA is Omicron. And Europe is waiting to report that to us. You wait and see. Delta,
Yeah.
simply because that's the nature of the virus.
So the situation seems alarming. It's going to spread and spread fast, as the experts are saying. But Tavleen Singh, political rallies during the day and curfews in the night.
It makes no sense to me at all.
Yeah.
I agree with the judge in the Allahabad High Court who said, please
Yeah.
stop these rallies. Now, you can't actually stop an election because constitutionally, I think there's a problem with that. But they know perfectly well how to address a political rally on television. In any case, most of this, people who go to the rallies are watching on huge screens. So there is no reason for any political party not to be able to communicate at these rallies, long distance via television, Zoom, or whatever you want to do with it. So, really, I think the most important thing, because I take very seriously what the experts just said. And secondly, my son just had Omicron in New York, and it's not mild at all. He didn't need to go to hospital, but he had a terrible time, and it lasted for 8 days. Now, in India, if that happens, people will panic. They will go to doctors. They will go to hospitals. And if in developed Western countries we're seeing the healthcare system overwhelmed, it's just frightening to think of what's going to happen here. So I think first, boosters. Look at the delay they've. What are we waiting for? Is there some kind of mahurat that it has to start at a particular time, or whatever? Why have they not taken a decision on boosters already when the rest of the world was taking it? So, I'm actually very worried about what's going to happen with this.
We have the experience of the second wave. It seemed like history repeating itself. There were rallies, there were elections, and then we saw what happened. And now again, we have elections and there are rallies, and the third wave is just knocking at the door.
Exactly. Are you talking to me? Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes,
All right. Now, you've got the states, for instance, the state of Uttar Pradesh borders Delhi. Delhi is already reporting. I think it's gone up from it's already in double numbers or something. So
yeah.
what are they waiting for? Is what I don't understand. I mean, it seems you get the government spokesman coming on and saying how well they're doing and we're doing better than everybody else in the world. So again, we declared victory too early last time, and this time as well. We seem to think that India is somehow exceptional and will escape this. And there is no indication that we will escape. So, I mean, for me, if I was advising the government, I'd say boosters, boost the booster program to, 10 times quicker, and please stop the political rallies.
Absolutely. And it is spreading fast. 331 cases in Delhi today. But Sandeep, Ghosh, I want to ask you, I can't understand the logic of night curfews. That curfew in the night and it's all right in the day. How is it going to, what logic it makes? Does the virus not spread in the night? Does it only spread in the day?
Zaffar, that's a question I made at some sort of a facetious tweet in the morning. A friend of mine, she was professor in the college, and also doubling up as a girls' hostel super. And she
Yeah.
pulled up some girls for breaking the night curfew, and the girl apparently shot back to her this many, many years ago that, Miss, what do you think that what happens at night can't happen during the day? So it's the same kind of logic holds for the night curfew. But having said that, the government is always the easy boxing target. But what about
Yeah.
people at large? If you see
Yes.
pictures of Christmas celebrations at Park Street 2 days ago, it was absolutely crazy. You can hold the government responsible, you can point, but what about people's own consciousness
Absolutely.
about these matters? And we are at the point, I think, which Dr. Gilada, Tavleen, Virendraji made, was we
Yeah.
don't seem to have learned anything. First of all,
Yeah.
you really, what only thing I keep saying that the COVID has taught us is the only thing we can predict is that nothing is predictable. Even
Yeah.
last time, if you recall, in wave 2, initially people said, yes, people are getting the infection, but it is not so severe, it's mild, but then the whole thing turned very different few weeks down the line. As Dr. Gilada was saying, it goes on an exponential basis. So the same thing can happen here, but we as, I don't know whether as a nation, we are so fatalistic that we simply don't seem to bother. And sometimes, you think that this whole immunization vaccination program could have also set in a false sense of complacency among the people at large. While the
Yeah.
point about boosters, etc., is valid, but it is also valid that so many people have not gone forward for taking the second dose. And I don't see also, I've been mentioning this in various communication articles as well as tweets, etc., that I don't see the entire country, that includes the opposition, the social organizations, and everybody, corporates, mobilizing itself for pushing the second dose booster. The whole system seemed to have gone on a bit of a slack, thinking that, okay, we have done now 1.3 billion or 1.4 billion doses so far. While boosters can happen, but boosters will also, by definition, you'll find who will take the boosters. It is the city people, the well-to-do people, but that also still leaves a huge section who have not taken the second dose exposed. So
Yeah.
we somewhat privileged people will go on taking boosters, And I know for a fact, one of the worries I had, delaying boosters would start a gray market. And I know for a fact, Dr. Gilada can, correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of people have taken the so-called boosters without certification off the record. I don't know what they will do now that it's becoming official. So that will happen, and people who have the wherewithal to go and do it will do. But how do you protect the larger population? And that requires a great deal of mobilization to increase your full vaccination doses.
Dr. Gilada, a lot of people have taken the boosters without certification. What will they do now? If you can unmute.
Yeah. If you remember, I have been telling that we started a vaccine Maitri program. It was to give vaccine to other countries. But I suggested that vaccine Maitri program can be domestic, because a lot of private hospitals had a lot of stock with them, which was expiring. Now you
Yeah.
imagine, private hospitals are not for charity. Most of them are business people. They are run by business entities, and they have purchased the vaccine, so they are going to sell it. So when they are selling, they were offering booster to people. I have been telling that you exchange vaccine between government setup and private setup. You provide them longer expiry vaccine and take their shorter expiry vaccine and use it. Not done. Then we said that you send this vaccine to Africa. Not done. So if that is the scenario, darta marta kya nahi karta, people will buy the vaccine, will take it. But I would advise them not to do it, because it is not entered anywhere. After maybe a month or two, international airlines and international entities will start that only if you are boosted, then only you are allowed to travel. Now, if you are not taken officially, you will have to take booster. We don't know what will happen with the fourth dose, because your 2 doses are official, third dose is unofficial, fourth dose will be official. And nowhere in the world they have done any study with the 4 doses. So I think people should wait and watch. The heaven will not fall if your booster is about a month or two later, but they should have wait and watch. That is not done. Lastly, when boosters are being offered, we do not know which booster to be given. We do not know when to be given. We do not know who to be given. Now, among the 60 plus population, more than 3 crore people have not taken second dose. So I think we should make a major campaign. If 12 crore people have taken first dose and only 9 crore people have taken second dose, where are these 3 crore people? And I think 60 plus people, a lot of them are dependent on young their children. So the children should take first this population to second dose. Now, in most places, home to home vaccination started. So I think by any avenue, whether you go to vaccination center or you call the vaccinator at home, but take the vaccine.
Yeah.
And we don't have yet which are the other vaccines which are approved. They are not available. So we don't know whether there will be other because boosters are said to be either mRNA or a different variety rather than what you have taken already. So there are Corbavax, Novavax, those vaccines are yet to be made available. I hope government of India is taking into account those things, and within a couple of days, a lot of vaccines will be approved.
Professor Veer Chauhan, you want to come in?
I want to just clarify 2-3
Yeah.
which are absolute
Yeah.
scientific issues. One is about the 90% of India has received Covishield, which is a vector-based vaccine. It's a backbone of a chimp adenovirus in which a small insertion of the COVID of the spike protein has been done. So when you give this as a vaccine, you raise antibodies to the whole virus. Immune system thinking this is what it should raise antibodies to. When you do the second dose of any vaccine, whether it is mRNA over mRNA or Covaxin over Covaxin, but especially Covishield, and other clones are Johnson & Johnson and clone are CanSino of China. Then you raise antibodies again, you get a booster shot, but you also raise antibodies to the adenovirus, which is your backbone. Should you come third time or the fourth time with the same vaccine, the amount of vaccine will be neutralized by the antibodies to the rest of the virus. So this has been written about, this has been explained. There is no surprise that AstraZeneca in January, when it started vaccinating, 2 years, almost a year back, started doing, if you remember all of you, mixing and matching was being discussed. Mixing and matching was started by AstraZeneca even had a contract with Sputnik, which has an adenovirus, not a chimp virus based vaccine. So the mix and matching in the case of Covishield like vaccine becomes extremely important and relevant. You can't keep giving the same viral backbone. So what am I saying? That's why when Covishield and Johnson Johnson both have small safety issues. In fact, Covishield is not given to younger people in England anymore. Under 40, they are not advised to get Covishield. So I don't want to confuse the matter, except to say the best would be a shot across the platform, since 90% of us have Covishield. Novavax, which has been now said yes in Indonesia, Philippines, and European unions. European Union last week has said to Novavax, which will be produced in very large amount by Serum Institute. In fact, Serum could make 1 billion doses in a year. It's an easy vaccine to make. It's highly stable vaccine. It's much cheaper vaccine and will be ideal as a booster. Lastly, same for biological evidence. Yesterday, day before, biological evidence have given phase 3 data of this Baylor College of Medicine vaccine, which is again a protein-based vaccine, produced in East in very large amount, very cheap, very stable, highly safe. Safer in the sense, very little side effect. And they all been tested well, Delta was on. So the government, all governments will announce the moment these protein-based vaccines are made available, life will be simpler for vaccinating people, for boosting people. Should you boost, should you not boost? That discussion ended in last August. Everybody started boosting after that. But in India, and these are locational problems. I'll just take 20 seconds. In Africa, for example, where the vaccines are only 20% coverage, talking of booster would be almost nonsensical because nobody's got vaccines. In India, I could make a case that first vaccinate everybody, or give at least one dose to everybody, and then somebody said, but people should come forward to, and this has been said 6 months back. In US today, 1/3 of Americans still do not want to get a vaccine. So it's not an India special. In fact, Indians are much better off getting the vaccine than Americans right now. You have to, we all, not you, we all have to have plans. We have to communicate repeatedly, bug the hell out of people that is very necessary if you want to stay alive and do not want to die of coronavirus infection. Then vaccine so far is the best defense. I think this message has to be given every half an hour to the public, and therefore the system has to wake up. We can't afford to slow down in the process. But booster, whether booster should be given or not initially was a moral issue or ethical issue because half of Africa hadn't received. All that stage is over.
Yeah. So communication is the key. I was hearing, when the Prime Minister spoke to the nation, he also said that people should wear masks. Everybody is saying, experts are saying, but Tavleen Singh, we see in those political rallies, neither the leaders are wearing masks nor the people. Anywhere you see in Punjab, you see in UP. What is the solution? Should the election commission step in and just postpone the election? Because nobody is, even after experts saying, day in and day out, the importance of masks and vaccines, nobody really adhering to that.
I don't think that the election can be postponed. I actually think it's a constitutional problem. You cannot actually, maybe they can find a way to do that. But it's perfectly possible to have a rally that is, a virtual rally. As I said to you, at these big rallies, 90% of the people don't get to see the stage. It's so far away.
Yeah.
They see it on a big
Yeah.
screen. So,
Yeah.
I think if the Prime Minister took the lead and said, I'm now going to address only virtual rallies,
Yeah.
the political leader would be obliged to do the same. But I also want to say something which I think that, hasn't been said yet so far, which is that you see this complacency that settled when we got to 100 crore doses. And at that point, we had, we needed to, if every, one had been fully vaccinated, would we needed 200 crore. And 100 crore, and then suddenly these big posters go up. Thank you, Modi ji. Thank you, Modi ji. So the messaging, I totally agree with what the professor said. Instead of concentrating on messaging on television, the actual health problems, the problems that people should be made to understand the importance of the vaccine, we're going into this, thank you, Modi. I mean, for me, there's something very seriously wrong with the government's vaccination policy. I've been criticizing it from day one. And, I actually think that the people on that vaccination task force should have lost their jobs, you know because but nobody was punished, and it's the same people now coming smugly onto our television screens and telling us how much they've achieved. That's not what we want to hear. We want to hear whether we're ready for the next wave and what we can do, to make sure that people understand how serious the problem is. But if your political leaders do not take it seriously, the people will not. That's the bottom line.
The Prime Minister is in Himachal today. Sandip Ghosh, have have we learned any lessons? We saw what happened in the second wave. When the second wave hit the country, it just shook everybody up. But seems that we learned no lessons, as Tavleen was saying. Perhaps these election rallies could be done in a virtual mode. What's the point of such big gatherings when you know that this new variant is extremely transmissible? Can't understand.
See, first of all, without discounting the risk of election rallies, and that's obvious. That's a no-brainer to say that what's happening. But I think this our obsession with election rallies is somewhat misplaced. Okay, it is to my mind, and much of it is again because it is what is whether BJP has an advantage in that or not. And I'm not being, I'm not taking a partisan position here. When BJP tried to do virtual rallies in Bihar, at that point in time, there was objection and saying that BJP has a technical advantage. They've got all the modus operandi over there, all the infrastructure over there to do it, and other parties are put in a handicap. So this is a no-win situation as far as the political rallies are concerned. But where we are all, I think, missing the woods for the trees, it's this messaging or lack of it is only half the story. And we all tend to put up a very, very urban lens to the problem. Many of us don't realize, no, Tavleen, hang on for a minute. Many of us don't realize the task of getting people to a vaccination center in the rural areas. If a person comes to a vaccination center, he loses a whole day's earning. To get them, and there, just the Prime Minister's messaging or people there saying it won't be able to, and when you're doing it in a short window, unlike your polio vaccination and other things, which was done over a larger window, to mobilize that, you need much more multiplier forces of the state governments. As I said, people have to involve grassroots organizations and everybody, even getting workers in cities to go to a vaccination center requires a lot of effort. And I don't think it will be unfair to put only the whole thing on a central task force or the Prime Minister. I think their messaging is also very important, because unless they create that kind of a social, movement, a lot of these things will not happen. But the baton, unfortunately, is not being picked up by people down the line. Aren't the states today as much engaged? Forget about controlling crowds, forget about other bit, in really taking up the tally of the second dose vaccination. Are we even monitoring what is the second dose level performance across states today? That is where a complacency has set in. And I buy the complacency argument, whether it's the 1 billion dose or whatever has been said. But I don't see in the various states where I am familiar with any urgency today happening in trying to push the second dose, whether in the rural areas or elsewhere. Dr. Gilada and others can correct me if I'm wrong.
Come in.
The point I want to make, because I really don't understand the point that Sandip was making. It's obvious that you need grassroots organizations to implement all that, and the state governments are involved. I actually would like to see it much more decentralized. But
Yeah.
the point that I don't think that Mr. Ghosh has understood at all is that there is a time to lead. The reason why political leaders are called leaders is because in a difficult time, you expect that leadership to be there. And I actually believe that if the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister has taken full credit so far, the control of everything, is his choice. His
Yeah.
picture on vaccination certificates means that he's claiming credit. So it is his time to lead. And, we haven't seen that leadership in this area. We've left everything so late that, even now, if he steps in and says, I am going to make an example and I'm going to actually now not address political rallies, which political leader from another party would be, reluctant to do it? So to say that, they tried it in Bihar and they said the BJP would get, that's not the point. The point is that if the Prime Minister shows a seriousness of purpose and actually leads here, the rest will follow. The country will follow. I don't see that leadership at the moment.
Leadership, that's a very important point that everybody. Yeah, yes, yes.
Highly, it's a matter of opinion. I personally, without being anything, I would say the kind of leadership demonstrated by the Prime Minister is exemplary. Nothing, we can all find faults. Given the situation, given the size of our population, given the complexities, everything, the way he has. Today, people, at that point in time, people laughed at the Thali Bazaar or that, lights out and various things. All those have a measure, which I don't, personally, everybody can different view. I think all those things have contributed to some. If we have reached today 1.4 billion vaccination, I don't think we can take away the credit either from the Prime Minister or the central government. Much more, whether much more could have been done or not done is another matter. As you were saying, today we know what's happening in America. Even why is today 30% of America unvaccinated still? And we cannot just talk of the red states, white, blue states, and all the rest. This is a generic problem. But everybody has to do. If today the solution was, I'm again repeating, I'm not underestimating or discounting the risk of political rallies.
Yeah.
But is that the only thing? Who has come out, say, for example, in West Bengal and Park Street, to say this is crazy, we are going to have a curfew on Park Street on 25th night and not let people gather in such a maddening way? Or in other states, nobody is taking that responsibility. Okay, so that is, I think we cannot be selective in our, indiction.
Well, everybody has to take the responsibility. The virus is not gone; it's still around, and in fact, the third wave just looks like it's knocking at our door. We have not forgotten those visuals from the second wave, so perhaps what is clear is that nobody can let down the guard. The guard needs to be kept up, and everybody needs to contribute his bit to counter this third wave, if possibly it hits the country. That's all we have on today's show. Thanks to our panel for joining us, and thanks a lot for joining.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalists.